Jimmy.
Hi, good afternoon. Pleasure to be here.
Good to see you again. Wanted to get your story. Kind of wanted to know a little bit about your life, about where you came from, and your history. What can you share with us?
This is, first of all, a privilege and an experience for me to be here, and thank you very much. Basically, I came from an area called El Barrio, which is known as Spanish Harlem. I went to elementary school there. I lived there in the tenements and in the projects. From there, I moved to Queens and the Bronx.
So how old were you when?
Roughly between the ages of, that I recall, 5 to my early 20s, pretty much.
And kind of a rough area?
It's considered a very rough area. A little funny story is I took my high school friends with me to the home, and as soon as we got into the area, they all hit the lock button on the doors, and I was hysterical, and I said, that's not how it is here, but I understand why you guys did that.
Right.
Because it gets a bad reputation,
right.
You know, but it's really not that way.
So you didn't have trouble personally growing up?
You know, you have to be like careful what you do. And always be aware of your surroundings. Most people don't know I had a little gang fight because I was wearing the wrong outfit.
Oh.
And I didn't know I was wearing the wrong outfit.
What were you wearing?
A leather jacket.
And that's all it took?
And that's all it took. What saved me was that I knew one of the members of the gang, so they didn't beat us all up, but I had to fight one of their members.
Oh my goodness.
So that's something that happened inadvertently. And then we used to be such a large family that when we grouped together, the police would stop us.
Wow. And
then they would say, well, what's your name? And we all had the same surname. So they would kindly eventually figure out, yeah, I guess you guys are family.
Right.
So, but it was a good experience. I wouldn't change it for the world. It was so-called a poor, bad neighborhood. That's not the way I viewed it. And fortunately, I never really felt poor. And I know there were times in my house where we literally didn't have any money, waiting for that next check that my mom would bring in, because my dad didn't work. He had a heart condition. But they never let me feel poor, and I never felt poor. I always felt like we were okay, or even better than okay. So from there we went to, I lost my father at 9. But prior to that, I saw a lot of ambulance calls and people who responded to my home. And one gentleman, who eventually I had the pleasure of working with, caught my attention. And as a kid, I kind of like kept playing back, seeing him come into my home and taking my father out. And maybe he responded 2 or 3 times. And that kind of got me thinking, like, you know, I kind of want to do that. I didn't want to be the person sitting or standing on the sides and watching something happen. I wanted to be the person who actually went in and did something positive and helped. So that kind of led me towards this pretty much after I finished high school and started college.
Wow. So where did you go to college?
So I volunteered. I first went to Baruch City College in Manhattan, Lower Manhattan. I did not like the experience there. I had to fight for my grades.
Right.
All my teachers wanted to give me low marks, and I said, no, I'm doing better than that. So you go to the chairman of the department, they look at your work, and to make a very long story short, I aced all the classes. So I went from getting a poor grade to an ace because I went to the chairman of all the departments.
Wow.
And I said, this is my work, I'm doing better. I think they were biased. There was a time when they were just letting a lot of people into the schools.
Right.
And they thought I just walked into the school, and I went to a fantastic high school. One, again, that's difficult to get into. So
was it not a public high school?
It was a parochial high school.
Okay.
So, working in the school, and my best friend, who was also my neighbor, we were like both surprised that we graduated from that school because it was a rough school. So getting into college, I applied to several, and I've made all the colleges. But I wanted to stay close to home. I turned down a scholarship to a school in Connecticut so I can stay close to my mom, because I had a car at the time, thanks to my mom, again. And they said, if we get the scholarship, you can't take the car to college. I'm like, it's in another state. I want to be able to come and visit my mom. So that's like the main reason I turned that one down. So I went to Baruch, and I was also working for UPS at the time, and I was doing good for UPS. And I was disappointed with the reaction I was getting from the teachers. So I said, I'll take a break. I'll just work.
Right.
And then I ended up working, getting my EMT and my paramedic. And 10 years later, I went back to college. That was a long break.
Yes.
So, but that was after I went to EMS. I went to EMT school, medic school, lieutenant camp, as we called it. And then I went back to school. Because I wanted to get a degree.
Right.
And I was fortunate enough to get into a program.
Wow.
So those are the kind of like my path up to work and doing what I did for 27 years.
So how hard was it to get on with the department there?
It's funny. My kid's mom, I had worked with a private hospital, which is usually where there's more money. Not a whole lot more, but more money. And I was comfortable there. And I was just about to get into their medic program. And I was with the kid's mom, and one day she pulled it to headquarters and said, go fill out an application. And I'm like, no, I was very comfortable where I was.
Right.
I had a Monday to Friday job. I had my own vehicle, which is a big deal where we are. And I walked in, and there were two gentlemen at the office. One I didn't know. He was sitting, and another gentleman was standing. And the gentleman says, the lists are closed. We can't take anybody else. And the gentleman standing next to him looked up. He goes, I know you. You trained with us. Put him on the list.
Wow.
Just like that. So I walked in at the right time. If that gentleman hadn't been standing there and remembered that I trained with them, I probably would not have this long career that I enjoyed a lot. Why I left? I don't know. I just got the sense that it was time to leave. I called my wife Amparo and I said, honey, can I retire? And she said, do you have the time? I said, I had the time 2 years ago.
Wow.
So it's just, that feeling, that gut feeling you get. And it was just this time to leave. But I love the job. I love the cruise. I miss the cruise. Personally, I feel like I should have been a better supervisor. There are lots of things that I think I should have done more of. More teaching, more participation. But I had other issues that took my attention away from the job.
Right.
But I enjoyed it. I've got no complaints about any of the crew members or any of the people that I dealt with. And it was a pleasure dealing with the public, because I was actually doing what I wanted to do. Not being that person standing outside, but actually responding and going and trying to help people.
So tell me what that's like. Well, you get a call, and what happens?
There are different stages. The EMT and paramedics, they're usually sitting in an ambulance, and most people think that they're out in a station. But we cover such a wide area that what they did was they send you into a zone, and you stayed there until you got called. It could be anything from childbirth, difficulty breathing, a cardiac, a fire. It would come over your radio, and eventually it would come over the computer as things changed and communication got better, and you would respond to an assignment. And it could be anywhere. Most of the times you stayed in that zone, but there's sometimes when there was a shortage in a different area, so you had to go and cover that area. At that time we used maps.
Right. I can't imagine what that was
so
like.
they took you took your map out and you responded to that area.
You had to be good and you had to be fast.
You had to be good, fast, and if you had a good dispatcher, they helped you along,
Mm.
and eventually you would get to the assignment.
Mm.
And I was able to do both. I was also a dispatcher for a while, due to an injury. That was a good couple of years. And I also worked in a place called telemetry for paramedics.
What is that all about?
That's where the medics call in and they get permission to give certain treatments,
Mm.
certain drugs that are under the control of the medical officer.
Mm.
That was another great experience. And you're actually in a room with a doctor and you receive the call as a medic. You get the information from the call.
Mm.
Usually the doctor's hearing, or you tell the doctor what you think, and the doctor will give orders to the medics in the field. That was very good until they started a program where the supervisors now for the city were not in an office. They were sent out to respond like a unit.
Right.
And I don't know if I mentioned, but I have been injured, which is how I got into this dispatching. And I said, you know what, that sounds like good for me. I can be back out in the field, back doing patient care. And it was a little patient care, a little bit in the office, and the mixture seemed to be right for me. And I was a supervisor for a little bit over 20 years.
Wow.
So, and that was awesome, good experience. I bounced around a little bit, but I mostly stayed in Manhattan, the Bronx, a little bit of Queens as a supervisor.
So were you injured on the job?
Yes, I was.
What happened?
We were taking a patient who was having a stroke and putting him into the vehicle. And in those days, you actually lifted the patient onto the vehicle, and the equipment gave way, and I took the brunt of his weight when I wasn't ready for it.
Wow.
Because it was a patient that if I had to, I could pick him up, but I was off guard, and everything just went at once.
Mm.
So I was out of work for about a year, but
Wow.
and it was suggested that I not continue working, but I was stubborn and I stayed with it.
Well, can you think of any real interesting experiences you had on a call? How about the time you had what should you call it? A little bit of a challenge with Rudy Giuliani. What happened there?
That's a soft spot for me. I'll have to think about that a little bit. I'll just say we were fortunate to be there on time, and the crews were super terrific. Crews that I knew well, the medics that I knew well.
Right.
And I'll say this, I heard the call on the radio, just to give you a sense of that call, and nobody was picking up the call. It wasn't in my area, it was in the next area over, and apparently everyone in that area was busy. And I knew there was a unit that had just pulled in to get gas.
Right.
And I actually went to get them and told them, come with me. And we went on the call.
Mm-hmm.
And when we showed up there, we saw that the kid had been struck by a vehicle. The medic unit said they were responding. Because as a boss, I could listen to different frequencies.
Right.
So I heard them coming, and I saw the car pull up. And when you work in an area like that, you try to recognize the unmarked cars. And I thought it was the previous mayor, but they had already switched staff and vehicles, and it was Mayor Giuliani.
Right.
I greeted him. He greeted me, not so nicely, but he greeted me. And I just focused on the patient
Right.
and what the crews were doing. I spoke to the mom, who initially was very calm, who, after a conversation, was no longer very calm. I feel bad about that. Nothing we did,
Right.
but those around us, what they did.
Right.
And to make, just to say that the patient got good care, and unfortunately went on a longer trip to the hospital than we felt he should have taken.
Right. Right.
But that was a choice they made.
Right.
Till this day, I don't know what the outcome was, but he got good special care later on, and
Right.
And I only make a comment because this became very public.
Right.
So.
Well, can you tell me a little bit about how you dealt with the adrenaline? I mean, it's not just anybody who knows what to do when you get into those situations. And I know you're trained, but what's it like when the adrenaline hits?
You have different stages in your career that you go through. Initially, you want to have that big assignment that you want to respond to, and you want to handle severe a cardiac arrest, or someone with a bad injury, or a shooting, or a stabbing, and you begin to respond to that, and after a while, you no longer see it as, I have to do that.
Mm-hmm.
If it comes, it comes. If it doesn't come, it doesn't come.
Mm.
And sometimes it takes a month, sometimes it takes a couple of years, and sometimes it doesn't happen. Every time you hear a certain type of call, your adrenaline goes up and you're ready to go. I've been asked a few times, people who know what I used to do, how I feel when I hear a siren.
Mm-hmm.
And I always feel like I should be going somewhere. You know, it's just like, why am I still here? It's that impulse
right.
to go and to do something for someone.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't think that way until I was asked that question a few times. How do you feel when you hear a siren?
Right.
You should be going. And I look and I see if I'm nearby, I might poke my head and just see that things are going the way they should be going.
Mm-hmm.
Knock on wood, I really haven't had to like say, hey, wait, no, don't do that.
Mm-hmm.
And I've, I recall a call where a kid, he didn't got hit by a cab. He hit the cab, and I was watching because he was running after a ball, and I'm in street clothes, and I walk over, and the crew responded, and they were doing the right thing. And since I was in street clothes in an area that I thought was not mine, I went to identify myself, and the young EMT said, I know who you are. And I was like, okay. That like caught me off guard, you know. And because I was giving my information to the detective and just to ID myself, like, who's this person in street clothes
right.
giving orders to people in uniform?
Right.
So it's small things like that, and then you always want to go.
Mm-hmm.
You always want to go. You always want to be, as a paramedic, we had what we call a sister unit, and we always wanted to beat them. We always want to be the first ones there and do that trauma call and do that heavy call that comes down that day. And we had a really friendly rivalry, which sometimes we had to tell ourselves, all right, back off for a few days because it would get heated.
Right.
But it was really a friendly rivalry that we had for days. And again, something I wouldn't change for the world.
Mm.
The awesome medics, EMTs. Yeah, I miss that part of it.
There's a real brotherhood.
Yeah, it is. But as far as the adrenaline, it's always there. You just kind of control it a little bit differently. You have to, because you can have a situation where the adrenaline can get you into trouble.
Mm-hmm.
If you do a scenario where, for example, you have a train wreck, or God forbid, because it's in the news, but it's happened where you have a mass shooting or something, and if you just run in and you're not paying attention to your surroundings, you know, you can run into the shooter, you can run into a bomb setup. So you need to control that, and it's some of the police have a saying for that composure time. When they step out of the car and they fix their belt and they fix their hat, you're actually not fixing your belt and fixing your hat. You're looking around, you're getting a sense of what's going on, maybe surveying the area, looking to see who's around you. People, when we used to respond, they want us to run out of the truck and run in, but you can't do that. You need to assess. You need that time to look around you. You know, you don't want to walk into a situation that you can't get out of. I have he's almost family because he taught me how to walk as an EMT, and he's a police officer, emergency services, and he also volunteered like I did as an EMT. And he was walking into a building, and he looked up. As he looked up, the refrigerator was coming down off the roof. You need to be aware
Wow.
of what's going on around you.
Wow.
You know, had he just ran in, he probably would have been hurt,
Mm.
and possibly seriously.
Wow.
So you don't run in to situations as you hurry. You know, you get your equipment, you think about what you're doing, and as you mentioned before, you're trained for that. You know what to do, but you still need that time to assess your area, your safety, the safety of others.
Mm-hmm.
You might have to move civilians out the way so that they don't get hurt. People don't take that into consideration. You know, they think you just want to push them aside. No, and also you need to clear it so that you can focus on the problem at hand,
Right.
not everyone around you. Those are just different things. And all these scenarios you fortunately get thrown into, and you practice. I had the privilege of working with police officers in one of the universities, Elon University, and we were helping the officers train for doing their car stops.
Mm-hmm.
And I got to drive one of the cars and stop, and the officer came behind me. And I did what you're not supposed to do. First of all, I jumped out of the car.
Mm-hmm.
I only spoke Spanish, and I didn't understand what he was saying. But that's the part of the training that you do.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I've been privileged to work with EMS, fire, and police departments, and I've been quite fortunate to have all those experiences. So that's how you prepare. You prepare for that. And he goes, he said, "Thank you very much." He goes, "I wasn't expecting you to come out of the car and not speak English." So that kind of clicked off that he has to remember that not everybody speaks English, and they don't understand what they're doing. They might not even understand, like, hey, they should sit in the car, put their hands on the steering wheel, and not move.
Right.
They'll open the door, fly out, which is what I did.
Mm.
You know. And he thanked me later on because he goes, now that's going to click in his mind.
Right.
That he's going to be ready for that individual who doesn't know what to do, who might be nervous.
Mm-hmm.
So, again, fortunate to be in those situations where I can learn, they can learn, working with different departments who had different jobs. You know, that's the other thing one needs to remember. If I show up as EMS, I have an EMS responsibility. If I show up as the police department, I have a police department responsibility. If I show up as a fire department, I have a fire department responsibility.
Right.
And the agencies have to learn to be together, work together. And even though they all have different goals, it's for the common good of that individual or that situation that they've responded to.
Right. Right. Well, let's change a little bit. I want to talk about the toughest day, the hardest day. I want to talk about 9/11. Can you take me there?
I went to 9/11 twice. Most people forget what occurred in February. We had been training in the towers maybe a month before, and we were training to do a high-rise fire, and as we were training, a real fire came in, so we came off the training and responded to the real fire. So we didn't actually train. That day, it wasn't in my area. I had the next area up, so I wasn't the primary supervisor to respond. I was then already a lieutenant and a supervisor, and I was in the field that day. So we heard the call go down. This is the first 9/11. February 26, I believe, of 93. And it was, I don't remember how it came over, but I remember the first lieutenant who had more experience than I would ever have responding to this assignment. So as a second due officer, you're kind of like listening, like, okay, you're waiting and you're hoping for him to say, no, it's nothing. It's whatever it was, it's minor. You can cancel anybody coming in. I only need a unit, 2 units, 3 units. So this supervisor, who is probably more experienced than anyone out there, when he pulls up and I'm listening to him and I'm waiting for his voice, and all he said was, "Send everybody." That's not how we train.
Mm-hmm.
You pull up, you assess, you go, send A, send B, I need C, I need D for this. That's how you train as a supervisor over the radio, to tell people what you need. When he said, "Send everybody," I knew we were in for a very long assignment. How long? I would never have guessed. So I'm making my way downtown, and it's kind of weird for myself. I'm heading in one direction, and I see units. I know we're all going to the same place, crisscrossing, because of where it's sat. The highways and the roads were different, and you're used to going different ways. I said, but we're all going to the same place. As I pulled up, there was a divide in the street, and I knew where he was, but I couldn't see him. And I was waiting for him to go on the radio and give further transmissions, but he must have been so inundated that I took command, and I started to give what was going on, more or less. It's been a while, so I'm missing the time frame, but after that, our borough chief showed up, and he gave me an assignment to cover an area, and that other supervisor, I never saw him for the rest of the day, and I knew he was like maybe 50 feet from me. And then we just started listening to the radio. That was difficult. I remember it was a long 24 to 26 hours. My final assignment was the morgue, and I remember that specifically because I asked the chief, "Can I go home? And can I go home because I have to go and relieve the next supervisor who was also there for a while?" And he said, "Okay, but you have to cover the morgue area until someone comes and relieves you, and then you can go home." And I basically went home, changed. I don't even know if I stayed in the house, and I went to relieve the inside supervisor in my station.
What had happened for the first 9/11?
They tried to blow it up using trucks in the lower parking area.
Okay.
Which fortunately didn't get the results they wanted, but it was definitely catastrophic. And I was able to go down and see the area. Unbelievable. It's unreal. Totally unreal. It just came to mind. I can relate to the people who are now in the midst of their war. You see it and you don't believe it. It's not something that you can touch and fathom, but you go like, this is really happening. It's nightmarish. So after that, I think the hardest one for me was the 9/11 call.
So we're going to talk about 9/11.
That was and still is. And my wife says I have PTSD, and I kind of believe her because it's very difficult for me to even talk about it. I don't go downtown usually unless I have to pass it. But the day started as I was in what we call refresher, which is retraining and you test again. And we're sitting in a classroom. I think there are maybe 30 of us, maybe 5 or 6 more or less. And we're about to take an exam. And it was a bright day like today, so the blinds were down. And one of the medics comes in and says, they just bombed the World Trade Center and a plane hit it. And we laughed. "Oh, you just don't want to take the exam." So we're all kidding, as we do. And he walked over to the window and he pulled the blinds up and we could see the smoke. And then it became very real. So almost on cue, one of the head instructors come in and says, if you have equipment in your vehicle, go get it. If not, let us know and get ready to leave. And I had a young, I want to say rookie, but I won't, a young medic behind me, and he taps me on the shoulder and he goes, Lou, is that where we going? Lou, short for lieutenant. And I said, we're definitely going. And again, on cue, somebody comes in and says, grab your stuff, get the stuff from your cars, meet up front. And they had commandeered, I think, 2 or 3 buses to head down there. Where we trained, which is Fort Totten. There was a bus turnaround, and there must have been buses there. So they came up, and we went down on buses. Very long ride downtown because we had an unmarked vehicle, which is something that most people ignore.
Right.
And we're in a city bus. The last thing they expect is emergency personnel going to this on a city bus, and traffic had already begun
to back up.
So it took us a while and an effort. When we got there, I just can remember everything was white, and the buildings were down, and we were just given positions to go to. The longest part was you were assigned to go and search areas and look at areas and go behind areas. And for those of us who are a little older who remember War of the Worlds in black and white, when they have the alien craft hovering over and all you see is debris, that was the picture I was looking at. Just debris everywhere. And in situations like that, you look, but when you see the destruction, you don't want to find anything, but you do want to look. And that's a hard choice, which you make all the time. You know, car accident, somebody stabbed or shot. You look, but you don't want to find anything wrong, but unfortunately you do. And the hardest part of that was losing so many people. They have no idea of the destruction surrounding the towers. There was one building that I recall that we were going to go into, and there was a steel beam, probably 3 feet by I don't know how long it was, and it had curled like a almost a U shape. And I said, man, if that thing was hot enough to make that melt, man, it was hot in there. And the other part I remember is how people came up to us, restaurants in the area brought food out, come in, eat. Other places brought clothes for us to change, and the outpouring of help from New Yorkers when they see somebody in need is almost unbelievable unless you're standing there and you're watching it. They get a bad rap because you got to be hard to be there, but people are as generous and as giving and as thoughtful as they are hard. And in situations that I've been into, that I've seen how hard it is when people are going through difficulty, there's always someone coming out, and not someone you expect. Hey, can I help you? You need this? You need a cup of coffee? You need food? And when I was working in Harlem, that happened a lot. You know, you have neighbors who come out and they see a family's going through something, and you need coffee? You need something? You need a break? You need to come out? They don't show that on television. You know, and those are the things that I remember the most, is how people in those times, much like 9/11, they just come out and help. The one story that I like to tell people is that area that I was sent to, we needed oxygen for patients that were lined up. And a truck comes in, and I have I think 1 or 2 people to my right. Everybody behind me was a civilian, including one person who looked like he was a street person, meaning he lives in the street. And the truck comes up, and the driver says, "I need help getting the equipment off." So the 2 or 3 of us step forward. Behind me, the 5 or 6 people, they step forward too. And the person behind me, who looks like a street person, he goes, "Lieutenant, what can I do?" And I knew he was probably a vet or someone like that, because he knew my rank just by looking at me.
Mm-hmm.
So, I need a minute. So, we started moving patients, and he goes, "Lou, what can I do?" And I said, "Everybody on that side's been triaged. They have their paperwork. We have to get them to the ambulance." So I watch him, and he starts going back and forth. And of course, I have to turn away and do other things. And in my area, we did at least 600 patients.
Wow.
How do I know it? Because I know the paperwork. And I say at least because the last bunch of people that we treated and evaluated, we had no more paperwork. So it was just put them in the truck and scribble on something. So I know that count is not 100% accurate. It couldn't be. Finally, I got a breather. I turn around to say thank you to this guy, and he's gone. And I feel really bad that I didn't turn around sooner and was able to thank him, because all I saw was him picking up people and going back and forth. Who knows how many times he did it. But again, that's the way New Yorkers react. And we get a bad rap, but when it gets tough, the tough get going, and
Right.
they pitch in. And that's just one story like that comes to mind in an extremely difficult, horrific time.
How many hours did you have to work?
That was another 24 to 26 hours. And then I don't recall if I had to hurry home, change, and relieve somebody. But that was another 24, 26 hours a day.
And mentally, how did you process all of it? Or do you? Can you?
When you're there, you can't. The only process that I had in mind was to take care of patients, make sure I had the help I needed to get them done, make sure I didn't miss anybody critical, and get everybody to the hospital.
From the footage we saw on TV, everything was white, like you said. Could you breathe? How was your breathing and all of that?
I don't remember.
Didn't burn? You didn't have any different...
I wasn't worried about me. I was worried about doing other stuff.
Wow.
So I actually don't remember how I physically felt. I had a job to do. I did my job. And
do you have any complications now because of it?
Yeah, I can't go downtown. It sounds funny, but my wife knows it's hard for me to go down into that area. And it's been a long time. It's been, 21 years almost, and I still can't do it.
You haven't been to the memorial?
No, I can't go. And when something comes up on TV, my wife will get up and change it. There was something a few days ago. I kind of started to watch it, and I think I must have turned it off. It's still fresh,
right.
But I've been lucky. If anyone hears this or sees it, for a number of years, I can still smell being downtown. And that just stopped maybe a couple of years ago. But for all that time, I still had that odor, that sense, like it was yesterday. And one day I realized, oh, it's gone.
Wow.
But that's how long it lasted. We're not talking a year or two, probably a good 15 years, more or less afterwards. I could still smell it. That odor just stayed. So, and I spoke to a senator here to remember about the vets and those who were injured and their families. And we're still losing people because of 911. So that number just keeps going up and up and up. It's not a finite number. It's a number that they had at the time that they decided to post it. But it just keeps going. And folks who had some kind of difficulty like me, who could still be fine but had those scars, let's call them, that's unknown. That's unknown. So that was a hard time. Not why I left though, but a hard time. Because even after I left, I went to a university and I worked there as a community service officer. I did some responding there.
So after 9/11, when you had to respond to your first 911 call, how was that? Did you have any difficulty responding?
No.
Or you just enter into
I
that
just
mode?
I was fortunate to be able to do that transition and just respond. That was the job. That was the job I chose, and that's what I wanted to do.
Right. But not all your calls were, I mean, from what I understand, they're difficult at the time, but some can actually be a little humorous after the fact.
After the fact.
There was a tiger call.
We had I happened to be on patrol that day, which means you were not in the office, you were responding to calls. And I went into the office for who remembers what, and the phone rings, and they go, "It's for you, Lieutenant." And I picked it up. "Lou, you have to come out here." "What?" "You have to come out here. There's a tiger on our call." And I'm like, "Okay." No, really, you have to come out. There's a tiger in our call." Okay, I went over. As I'm pulling up, fire department vehicles, ambulances, and police emergency vehicles. And I'm like, okay, when did all of this happen that nobody called me? So obviously the person to call was the unit on the scene. "No, you have to come, Lieutenant." So I walk up, and I don't remember what floor it was, but it was like maybe the middle of the building, 9th, 10th floor. It was a project. And I walk in, and the officer goes, "There's a tiger in the apartment." I go, "Okay." And he had tied a rope to the handle so that it couldn't be opened by mistake. But he had the camera underneath the door. And he tells me, "Go look at the camera." And I look. And for lack of a better description, there is a Bengal tiger walking back and forth in the hallway. And I'm like, okay. And he said, "Well, we already called animal control and we called the zoo." And the way the call originated was the owner of the pet was mauled by the pet and went to the hospital. And he told the staff that it was a dog, and the doctor looks at him and goes, "No dog can do that kind of damage." So they sent somebody over, and everyone in the building was aware that there was a tiger in that apartment. The lady who lived under that floor was very upset because the tiger, you could smell it and see it in her apartment. She goes, "I've been telling them, but nobody believes us." So I guess now they have to believe her because there he is. We had to wait for the zoo to respond because the experts at the zoo said you can even shoot him and all you do is make him angry because the weapons you have will not take the tiger down.
Wow.
So and of course you don't want to do that with an animal. Where he goes, if you put yourself in a position where you have to shoot, you're just gonna make him angry. So wait for us to respond, and fortunately they came. I think they came from the Bronx Zoo initially, and they bought their tranquilizers. They go, "This is what you need to do." And a very brave officer that I didn't meet was repelled from one floor
Wow.
outside of the building and took a shot through a window at the tiger. So you figure, okay, you're done. Go get the tiger. They asked to borrow our equipment to move the tiger because it was huge, really huge. So we said, of course. And they said, well, we have to go back into the apartment. What? I think it was a type of alligator also in the apartment that they carried out with the duct tape around the beak and
The same apartment?
same apartment.
He had an alligator and a tiger.
And a tiger. He had
Wow.
pets. And the story came out in the newspaper, and they showed the officer repelling and taking the shot. And then, fortunately, eventually, a zoo, I want to say Chicago, but I don't know for sure, took him, because now it's hard to put the tiger into an environment that he's not used to.
Right.
So all of that had to be taken into consideration. I don't know how the patient did. I never saw the patient. I feel sorry that he got injured. But really, it's sometimes when people tell you there's a pink elephant in the room, there's a pink elephant in the room.
Could be, yeah.
You know, it could be. Go see. So,
Wow.
and that was interesting for me, and not at all expected.
Right.
But again, that's a good story to remember. And the crews were awesome, you know. Both PD, fire, EMS.
So tell me, what was it like in terms of how it affected your family to be to do the kind of job that you did?
Initially, my kid's mother was also an EMT, so she was aware of what you do and what you see. But we both responded to a call because we worked together initially. And on this call, we decided that we were never going to talk about a call at home. That's how horrific it was. And till this day, I remember where the call was, what it was, and what made us make that decision that we're not talking about calls anymore at home. Unless you're in a room and you're training and you're going over stuff like that. That type of impact is rough. I had an EMT, tough as nails, crying in the back of an ambulance, outside, not inside, on the rear of the ambulance, because she had witnessed someone who jumped from a building. Those things you can't erase, and they hit hard on, I want to say us, but I'm not part of us anymore. It was hard on them that, and people don't take that into consideration at all. The price you pay to do that job, the price you pay to be a police officer or a fireman or an EMT, it takes its toll. What made me turn my switch, which is kind of funny, if you want to laugh, I was a volunteer EMT, and we did a call in a really nasty bar, smelly, doing CPR and working on a patient. And after the call, not me, because I'm the rookie, the veterans all said, let's go for pizza. And I'm like, and of course you still have this sense and this odor, and it's all on you, and you said, go for pizza. I'm the rookie. I don't have a vote. Okay, so guess where I'm going? I'm going for pizza. And when I finished the pizza and was able to not react the way I thought I was going to react, I said to myself, I can do this job. That was like the switch. Like, okay, I can do this job. It's not always like that. It's hard. You have memories that you cannot erase, and they keep coming back, like you just saw. So it takes its toll. And my hat's off to people who do it 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years. Um, it's hard. You pay a price. You lose a little bit of your skin comes off, and you have bruises that don't show up, and hopefully they don't show up. But it's not easy. Do I enjoy it? Did I enjoy it? I loved every minute of it. No. Sometimes I wish I was young and could do it over again, because of the people that you meet, and you know when you respond on an assignment, they're all working hard to do what's best for the person, and I've been both fortunate that when I've been ill, I've had them respond, and I've seen what kind of care they do for me as well as other individuals, both in house and on the street. So we need to keep those individuals in mind. It was funny, not funny, haha. My wife did not know that medics go into shootings. So I kind of pointed out to her, if you're on TV and you're watching the news, look behind that first officer or look behind that second officer. And she started doing that, and she goes, that was an EMT, right? Because they didn't have a gun or anything, and they're right behind. I said, yeah. We have a saying, you got to be in his hip pocket. So basically that's it. And my job as a boss was being the person behind the officer who was going in, so I can make sure I can tell my crew whether they can stay outside or come in. But again, people don't think of that. People, they see you in the corner not responding. And more than once I've had people, almost antagonistically, why are you sitting there drinking coffee? And I've said, be glad I'm sitting here drinking coffee, because that means somebody is not in danger, doesn't need our help, is fine, and is healthy. When you don't see me sitting here and I'm out there chasing somebody, chasing a call, then that's not good for anybody. So be glad I'm sitting here not doing anything. And not doing anything could be interrupted by 911 call, or the tiger call, or the call where the person saw someone jump. So it's something that people don't take into consideration. Nowadays, the biggest problem is with police officers, and the alleged mistreatment of people in their custody. But you don't know how difficult it is to handle someone, being in the medical side or in the fire department side, where you see someone that is on the floor. There's 7 people on top of this person, and they can't handle him. Basically, the 7 people have a good chance of being hurt or worse. And when you see that, you think about things a little bit differently. That one person could probably hurt 5. Or sometimes I tell people, that one person has no feeling for whatever reason. And the people try to subdue him do. So they get kicked, they feel it. This guy gets punched, he doesn't feel it. It's like nothing happened. Don't look at you and smile. You need to put yourself in different scenarios. Some things are awful that have been of late, and when I see them, I see it as horrible on both sides. I see the victim side, I see the PD side, and for me it's just horrible all around. But you have to be in that situation. Unfortunately, I have pictures in my mind already of one guy who had a taser starting from his toes all the way up, and they still couldn't control him. He was tased.
Wow. And
he was just flipping. If you don't see it, oh no, he got tased, he should have gone to the ground right away. No, it doesn't happen that way. So.
Well, tell me, how about your faith in God, and how does all of this affect your faith and your walk with the Lord?
Never lost faith in the Lord. We have individuals always ask why, and couldn't it have happened another way? I still wonder why the Lord is so good to me. I don't think I've done anything that I should be receiving what I receive. And I've never lost faith. When I lost my father, who, by the way, did a good job preparing me because he knew that he wasn't going to be around. So I always got this speech, take care of your mom, take care of your family, I won't be around for you, etc. But when I lost him, I didn't lose faith in the Lord. When I lost my mom, which was a big hit for me, it was the 1-2 punch for that year because it was 9/11, and just as the year ended, I lost my mom. So that was a big hit for me. Never lost faith in the Lord. Always praise the Lord. He's taken me through some difficult personal situations, more mental than physical. So it wouldn't be something people can observe and say, "Oh, I saw him having this problem." No, but inside, I've never lost faith. The only thing that I've had to change was, as we were discussing on the way here, was going to church. I find 2 people go to church, they walk out the door, and the church seems to stay in the building, and they become somebody else. I have a problem with that. That's a personal issue for me.
Right.
They need to take that church with them, take that love of the Lord, and give it to the individuals that they meet. Have faith in the Lord. It's the bootstraps that can pick you up all the time. You know, it comes to mind that when you see the guy walking the beach by himself, and you see the tracks behind him,
Right.
and it's the Lord, it's the same thing. When I've been down a few times, and when I say down, I mean when you see the drain, I've been below it, and the Lord has helped me get through it. Something people don't see. I still pray to the Lord. When I feel that I'm in the thick of things, I ask for the Lord's help. And never did I question the Lord to the point when I'm in those bad scenarios that why that, you know. You get a why that, but then you get like, it's up to the Lord. There's a reason for that, what he's doing or not doing, why we're going through what we're going through. I just wish people would take the church with them home. It doesn't seem to be happening nowadays. So, and churches wherever you are, this is church right now.
That's right.
This is church right now. I don't have to be in a building and see a statue or paintings or have a priest in front of me. That's not my church. My church is all around me, all the people around me, and my faith. You know, if you have to go to a church to feel like you're with the Lord, then I think you've missed something. You know, you need to feel it. You need to believe it. On a day like today, thank you for having us on this special day. First thing I did this morning was send a message to my friend, who I knew at 8 o'clock in the morning would be on her laptop watching the Mass. And I said, "Good morning. God bless you." And I knew what she would be doing. So it's something that we need a lot. We have a hard time when, as you know, you work at a very secular school. I have a hard time with that. That I walk into your building and I can't say God. Or I can't feel comfortable. I can say it, but I can't feel comfortable saying God. I have a hard time with that. I respect your rules.
Right.
But it's my faith. I believe in the Lord. You know, don't keep me from that. I'm not hurting you by saying
No.
I believe in the Lord. You can believe, you cannot believe, you can follow, not follow. And I've been through some stuff that most people don't know, and I will never lose faith in the Lord. He's gotten me through that dark side. He's lifted me up. Like I said, I don't know why I have what I have today, but that he's been generous enough to let me have it.